28th. I think you can, if you haven't seen that person yet. So as you may know, my name's Olivia Nunes. I'm a manager in childcare funding policy and development. And I'm happy to welcome you to today's session. I hope folks got some well-deserved kind of rest over the holiday break and is ready to take on 2026. So in December, you did receive an email with a bunch of resources. We did have a teleconference in December, really focused on the critical things that you needed to be aware of for kind of January 1st, like the key changes. And so today we wanted to kind of go through some of the other components and really give folks an opportunity to ask questions. So in December, you would have received your CWELCC guidelines and, if applicable, your school age guidelines as well. You also would have received your service provider handbook, so a bunch of resources. So I know that it's a lot of information, it's many pages, but if you haven't done so already, I really strongly encourage you to review the guidelines thoroughly. This will ensure that you really have an understanding of, the program and, also ensure that you can maintain compliance this year, right? There's also an ability to, go to different sections, using the table of contents if you want to refresh your knowledge on a few specific sections, like the grant funding, the workforce compensation funding, or planning time, whatever that topic is for you, then you can kind of just do it maybe topic by topic if you find that easier. But we do recommend you go through the entire guideline. As always, if you have any questions about the guideline, your EYS, your early year specialists are there for you. Do not hesitate to reach out to them with any questions that you have if you don't understand anything or if you require clarification. Today, we're going to highlight some of the requirements so that you can be successful for 2026, and we're going to have some dedicated time for Q&A. So for those of you who have reviewed any of the guidelines and you have specific questions on anything, this will be an opportunity for you to ask those questions. And again, so these teleconferences, they're meant to be an enhancement to the guideline, but they don't replace, we don't go into the detail of all of the language in the guideline. So they don't replace the guidelines, which is why we're highlighting or really trying to emphasize, please read the guideline. It will help you. It is meant to help you and help us kind of work together. So before we get started, I'm just going to refresh everybody's memory on how to use the Q&A feature, because this will be a Q&A focused teleconference. So this would be important particularly. So you can use the feature in Teams, and on the top you'll see there should be a Q&A feature on the Q&A icon, and then you can ask your questions on the side. If there is a question that you're like, oh, I had the same question, then you can either upvote that or, see the little thumbs up, one or the other. And that helps us to know, okay, we need maybe a bit more clarity on this question, because a lot of people have the same question about the same topic. So using that upvote button, using the Q&A is helpful. If you're unable to see the Q&A feature on the Teams app, if you can join the meeting using the web-based version, so like just going onto your laptop, your computer, and signing in from the web. So if you're saying, hey, I don't have that Q&A, maybe the app functionality isn't there, but on the web version, it should be there. The other thing is that you can always, there's a raise hand feature that 2 icons over. You can also raise your hand and we'll get to questions. We'll kind of go back between the chat and to raised hands. Okay, so now we're just going to go into a few minor housekeeping things. So like normal, the session's being recorded and the presentation would be shared. So you don't have to, take brisk notes. We'll be sharing the presentation with you. Your microphones are muted just because that way it just helps with sound. And we're going to, like I said, take questions at the end. So let's get to our agenda. So, so today, again, we're talking about 2026 funding overview. We're going to be talking about it for both CWELCC and school age. to make sure you have all of the resources again. We're going to look at the funding tools that we shared, just to kind of take you through, okay, what they are, some key dates. We're going to touch upon the workforce innovation funding, enhanced program support funding, and what are your requirements for 2026 in terms of CWELC and school age. And then, most of our time is going to be on agenda item number 6, which is the Q&A period. Okay, so let's dive in with our first piece, which is key resources, dates, and reminders. So we've so next slide, please, Alicia. Thank you. All right, thank you. So you've received the following things. So you'll see on the left of your slide, you've gotten some critical policies. So these are the 4 documents. Please read these ones, right? So these are your CWELC funding guidelines that you received in December, your school age funding guidelines also in December. Like I said, your service provider handbook that's been updated. And what was new, it was released before, but we also, shared it out again, the accounting and note disclosure guideline. Right, and this is particularly important for those of you on the call who serve 0 to 12. So you are serving both school age and CWELC eligible children, because there is some guidance in there related to proration that's important. The other thing that we gave, just as a reminder, is some memos. Some of these memos are optional. You can use them as needed. Some of these memos need to be sent out, right? So we've got memos related to, how uh, uh, the GOF is being calculated different into the grant funding. Then we've got a memo that you can use as needed for new RECEs, and like to talk to them a little bit about the floor and what they can expect from the grants. Then we've also shared a memo for you to share with staff related to the planning time and professional learning time that has been allocated to both your CWELC allocation and your school age. And then there is a memo for you to share with families that you probably should have already shared related to fees. This one is just, there was a little bit of confusion about what the fees might be for on the CWELC side. So this just is a tool to help you kind of clarify that. In terms of tools, so middle column was all kind of memos, paper, communications that you can share with families, and those were available in both English and French. In terms of tools, and I know that you folks are already starting to use the staff wages and planning tools because we've been getting questions about that, and that's great. That's wonderful. Please use that tool, excuse me, to help with determining what staff should be receiving in terms of their grant funding now that there has been an additional dollar in workforce compensation funding. Then the other tool is to help with workforce innovation funding, kind of reporting and planning. So those tools have been released. The ones that are coming in Q1 are some of your budget planning tools. So this might help you plan out your available allocation, your budget for 2026, one for CWELC and one for school age. So you'll see those by the end of Q1. So those are just some tools that have been created just based on provider feedback. Okay, so now let's talk about just some key reminders and important dates. So this date has passed. So January 9th, so for staff who are affected by that change in order of operations. So this is for any providers on the call who gave their staff GOF funding as part of their kind of wage, right, as a grant. So so you wanted to share that memo with those staff. Also, by January 9th, like I said, the memo related to family should have been sent already. So these things should have been done already. By January 30th, which is coming up in a couple of this weekend, right? You want to share that planning time and professional learning memo with staff. That's just to make sure that staff are aware of these resources that are available to them. Also, you want to upload, and upload is bolded because sometimes folks have been forgetting to upload the reconciliation template in GovGrants. So for your 2025 school age funding reconciliation and the program top-up funding reconciliation, please upload both of those items into GovGrants by no later than January 30th. It's just a general reminder. By February 13th, that communication that you sent to staff on the 30th, if you can send us a copy of that by February 13th, please send that to the ZZG email box. And then again, the memo that I said related to the RACEs, that's as you need, as new staff join your organizations, you can share that as you need it. For school age, by August 1st, you should be posting your school age childcare fees for the 2026-27 school year. And if on the school age side, you know, there you have any funding that you're seeing, you feel like you're short, right? Particularly on the childcare fees budget category, you need to email us by no later than October 1st. Please, like, if you email us at the end of the year, it's very difficult for us to be able to support any potential, you know, funding adjustments that may need to be made related to school age funding. So please do that by October the 1st, no later than October the 1st. The sooner the better with that one. Okay. So now let's talk a little bit about reporting. So we collect data through those three methods right now. Those are the three boxes that you see in front of you. So OCCMS, you guys are reporting your operating data monthly. Thank you very much. Gov grants, I just was talking about some reconciliation and some update tasks, I think information that goes out through there and through our Excel and reconciliation templates that we're currently collecting for 2025. And we just want to remind all operators a few things. So the data that's collected through these different mechanisms, we use that data to help us support decisions related to funding allocations, assess your eligibility for funding, monitor and report on our programs, which is important because we need to show, you know, it's important to show return on investment. It's important to show how these programs are supporting our communities in order to ensure that investments in those programs can continue. So that's why we collect all that information. And also the last is to also show accountability of public funds, which is one of our key roles as service system manager. So that's why we ask what we ask and for, and how your data, what we collect, how that data is used. So that's just a reminder that that timely and accurate reporting really helps kind of minimize any potential, like even allocation errors that are based on data that's been kind of reported back to us. So we just wanted to explain a little bit about why we collect what we collect, how we use it, and why it's important. So thank you for that. It's a little public service announcement. Please report timely and accurate data as much as you can. Okay, so next, we're going to talk a little bit about workforce integration funding. So this is like your planning time and your professional learning time. And we just wanted to, we heard some feedback on this and we're trying to make it consistent. So, so for planning time, right? Setting up inclusive and engaging learning environments has been added as like an eligible activity. So we just clarified that within the guideline that when you're looking to set up your learning environments, any time taken to do that can be considered as planning time. And then the other clarification that we did have is for your staff who are going to do professional learning, right? And maybe they're having to drive somewhere because they're taking a course that's not at their regular childcare center. You are able to cover mileage for your staff based on 72 cents per kilometer for travel for these courses outside of, you know, regular working hours. So those two things have been added. Again, based on feedback and clarity that we received last year. So that's new for this year for workforce innovation funding. We also just updated to clarify the language on planning time, and that and also to clarify again that planning time is focused on staff who work with children. So it's not for, administration staff or supervisory staff. It is really focused on any staff that have direct, regular contact with children on a regular basis, consistent classroom or cohort of children. So we just wanted to really make that clear with some of our language. So that's just a clarification. It's not new. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about enhanced program support, and this applies to both CWELC and school age. So a few of the KPIs for this have been reduced. So you can see there that now there's a focus on, okay, again, how many children needed support, whether that's children who are CWELC eligible age or school age eligible. Want to collect data on those, and how many hours of EPS support were provided. And just on the school age side, we're looking to collect the average monthly number of school age children who needed extra support. Right, and a few reminders as well that this EPS staff cannot be included in ratio, and they can't provide one-on-one supports. These are not changes, these are just reminders. And EPS staff, must be compensated with within the minimum and maximum wage limit. And you'll get more details for that in the guideline. And also, so in terms of flexibility, and we'll see, from what I heard from the sector, you guys really utilize this funding, but you can use up to 10% of your funding on other 6 to 12 expenses. If you want to use more than 10%, you must kind of apply via email to the peers email box. So you can only move 10% or less EPS funding into any of your other budget categories in your school age announcement. If you want to use more, you need to request approval. Okay, so now with that, I am going to pass it along to Debbie, who's going to take us through the other CWELCC and school age reminders. Over to you, Debbie.
Okay, thank you so much, Olivia. Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Debbie Burju, and I am an advisor with the Childcare Policy and Funding Development Unit. So today I'm going to take you through a few reminders about the 2026 CWELCC funding, some of which, you may already be familiar with, as we did discuss some of this at the teleconference last December. So what's key to remember for 2026? There are no big changes to the CWELCC program, and which is good news, right? The main structure is staying the same, and so what you've been doing in 2025 will mostly continue. And so what's really important for you to remember is that CWELCC fees are also not changing in 2026. And so this means that families will keep paying the same rates as last year. The other small change that was made is program allocation benchmarks were updated by EDU for 2026. And so, we anticipate that annually these benchmarks are going to increase. And so there is a bit of an increase for 2026. You will not, so right now, the allocation that you see in Gov grants don't reflect these updated benchmarks. As you'll recall, we rolled over 2025 allocations into 2026. And so you'll see this change to your allocation in April. The other small change that was made is the eligibility ceiling for the wage grants. So the ministry did update the wage ceiling for WEG, as well as the wage floor and wage eligibility ceiling for the workforce compensation funding. And so we did share a staff wage tool with you in December, as Olivia mentioned, and I strongly encourage all of you to use this tool to help calculate the wage grants for your staff, and this will ensure that you are paying your staff correctly, as it does all the calculations for you. And then the final bullet on this slide is for our multi-site childcare providers on the call. And so as you may recall, beginning in 2026, your allocation is at a site level and reconciliation will be done at a site level as well. So this means that you cannot move money between sites. So in GovGrants, you'll see it at a head office level, but we'll be sharing a detailed breakdown of your allocations by site with you. And if you receive the legacy top-up, this amount will also be assigned by site based on what you confirmed with us in 2025. And so the really important thing here is that you're not able to move money between sites in 2026. And so while most rules are staying the same, there is a change to how base fee revenue offset is calculated. And so what is your base fee revenue offset? So this is the amount of revenue that we anticipate you will collect directly, either from families or through subsidy. And so you can use both your CWELCC program cost allocation, the money that we pay to you via GovGrant, plus the money that you collect directly from families and fee subsidy to support all of your eligible CWELCC program cost. And so the change that's being made for 2026 is that the expected base fee revenue offset amount is being calculated using a 5% vacancy allowance. And so the change here is in 2025, it was calculated using a 10% vacancy allowance. So we assumed that providers were operating at about 90% of their operating capacity. In 2026, we're assuming or we're calculating that base fee revenue based on 95% of your operating capacities, so allowing for that 5% vacancy allowance. So depending on how you operate and where you are with your vacancy, you may collect more than we anticipated. So you may collect more than you see in Gov grants. And so when that happens, you may owe us a bit of a recovery or amount repayable to the region of Peel if you collect more base fee than we anticipated. And you'll also see this amount updated in April when we adjust your allocations. So moving on to the next slide. So one-time emergency funding. And so because your allocations are being updated in April, and for the most part, providers should see a bit of an increase in April if your operations have stayed the same, you will see that bit of an increase. And so because of this, just we're delaying how we look at one-time emergency funding applications for 2026. So as you know, you must use your program cost allocation before applying for OTEF, except for major capital expenses. And because we anticipate providers' allocation will increase in April after we update it for the 2026 benchmarks, we are asking that childcare providers only apply at this time for major capital expenses. And so we'll only be considering pre-screen requests for OTA for major capital. All other applications we'll be looking at them once allocations are updated in April. So at this time, we'll pre-screen, your request for major capital, but for everything else, we ask that you wait until after you see your updated allocation before you apply, because once you see your updated allocation, you may no longer have a need to apply for OTEF to support any one-time operating expenses. The last note that's on the slide is, OTEF was introduced in 2025. And so we are looking at the policy and process that was implemented last year and may make refinements based on key findings for Q2. And so we are reviewing that, over the next month or two, and you may see, minor changes. And once we complete that review, we'll share the results, the findings with you through guideline changes. Let's now turn our focus on the school age reminders. And so the requirements that you're seeing on this slide are really for providers who receive funding for their primary junior spaces and are required to follow the requirements in the school age guideline. So first off, your funding allocations and GovGrants cover a full calendar year of funding. So that means, from January 1st to December 31st, 2026. And so this means everything you plan for and spend should fall within this window. We will be reviewing allocations once we have the available data for childcare fees and wage grants over the summer. So in the school age guidelines, we also say to contact us before October 1st if you have a funding shortfall. And I know Olivia touched on this a bit. However, we ask that you review your budget on an ongoing basis and contact us as soon as you notice you'll be experiencing a shortfall. The earlier we know, the better we can all plan for this change. As well, the school age funding announcement includes the same budget categories as last year, so just no surprises there. Operations funding will be added in Q1, so keep an eye out for that update later this year. And just another reminder, once you've met all of your mandatory requirements, you can use your funding flexibility per the policy in the guideline. So we encourage you to review and take advantage of the financial flexibility policy in the guideline, and this will ensure that you can use all of the funding that we've provided to you this year. I'll now hand it over to Sonia to share with you some key next steps, and she will be facilitating our Q&A session with you today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Debbie. All right, so our next steps are, again, I think both Olivia and Debbie stressed just the importance of reviewing your allocations that are in GovGrants. Your EYS will be setting up some time with you to go through that, and quite regularly throughout the year. We are kind of doing check-in times, and the team will be doing that quite regularly with their individual caseloads around your budget and your allocation, just to ensure that we don't get any surprises, and that you actually know the funding that you have available for you, and more importantly, us wanting you to maximize your full allocation. Continue again to review your operating budget and really keep that up to date. We are encouraging all. You'll see last year, I believe at first it was just our legacy providers that we were asking for it, but then with other funding that came up, the team needed the operating budget to support it. So it is important to have that operating budget up to date, and adding in your actuals, and again, your EYS will go through that all with you. And then the other thing is, we've heard from you that the tools that we develop are actually tools that are helpful, and we're thrilled to hear that they're being used. And so, one of the big ones, and I know a lot of the EYS have talked to me about this, is that staff wages tool. And that will just help you calculate how much you should be paying your staff, and ensuring that they are receiving the appropriate funding that they're actually eligible for. So that tool is there to support you, so I encourage you to use that tool. And I think we're ready for questions.